and welcome to KamenRider Blackman. Today is a new first on this channel because we will be reviewing our first Project Red show, Super Space Sheriff Gavan Infinity. As of recording this, the first episode of Kakusei Hunter Omega Horn is out, and this show ended, I want to say, 2 or 3 weeks ago. So if you have yet to have finished this show in its entirety, I'd recommend you do so first before clicking on this video. Or if you haven't seen it at all and are curious about it, well, take a look, see if you would want to watch the show for yourself. But fair warning, spoilers are ahead. So, Super Space Sheriff Gavan Infinity. Not once is he ever referred to as a Super Space Sheriff. I'm serious. This is a thought I had when preparing for this review. He's never once referred to as a Super Space Sheriff. He's just Space Sheriff Gavan Infinity. Who was the super part for? That was someone wanted to contribute somehow, just say they did. So they put super in front of Space Sheriff Gavan Infinity. They wanted to do that. They know who they are. Let's just get into the show. We're going to be reviewing this show a bit differently. Instead of going over the story episode by important episode, or even reviewing it in a good, bad, in the middle, we're going to talk about this show more as an experience. Because as I was going over this show, to which I unfortunately didn't keep up with the show while it was airing, I watched the whole thing when it ended, and it took me 4 days to watch all 23 episodes. And so, as I was watching this show, I couldn't kind of review it how I usually would. Otherwise, it would have been a bit too repetitive, saying, oh, a new Gavan comes in this episode and that episode and just other. This show seemed like it needed to be a bit different for review, considering how episodic it is. And so, we're going to discuss the premise and then the characters, because I can definitely elaborate more on the story talking about the characters. So, as always, when I start a review, let's start off with the music. This show does not have an opening theme song, but it does have an ending theme song, Love is the Strongest. It's a good song. It definitely took a couple of listens to for me to really dig it. But yeah, this is a song I can imagine being played during a cardio workout. But man, these animators, they knew how to play this song in the show. And I don't just mean for the ending theme, but I'll get into that when I get into the characters. For now, let's talk about the premise. Episode 1, our story opens to a flashback of a great battle in space, and a lineup of Gavans stand in the enemy's way. And that's that. The person having the dream is Commander Carl Wiglis of the Alpha Earth 0073 Galactic Police Alliance. First interesting fact about this show is that it touches on multiverse theory, because this Earth, Alpha Earth, is one of many alternate universes, part of the Cosmo layers, and conveniently, our titular character is a space sheriff who travels to different universes to fight Emorgear crimes. Emorgears being the collectibles of this show, battery-like trinkets that are powered by emotions. Emorgears come in good and bad because they can be corrupted and turned into Nega Emorgears, which are Emorgears that, with enough intense emotions, could spawn monsters or even portals to the Maku dimension, which we will get on actually right after we talk about the monsters. So, the monsters in this show are the Emons, and they all look the same. I kind of wondered why that was, and I could never find any information on the wiki until just today, when someone shared information from X that made it onto Facebook. So here's our information, assumingly for this show. Longtime Sentai character designer Tomatsu Shinohara, he states that the issue involved compensation for Super Sentai monster designs because many recent villains are created by modifying existing costume base suits rather than being designed entirely from scratch. The design fee was reportedly reduced by half, while acknowledging the reduced workload justified the reasoning. The designer said the resulting pay had become so low that at times, Shinohara uses his son for example, that their budget was even less than what his high school age son made from his part-time job. How is I'm so thankful this is not a channel talking about other countries' economies, because for the original KamenRider, they had such a low budget. And shoot, even in KamenRider Ghost, like, whatever budget they had, they went towards Amazon's, which is why they kept reusing the same monster suits after a while. So, what kind of financial crisis? Like, first off, this is all on the accountants of the show. They would have to negotiate budgets and everything. So, for what little that they had to work with, just wow. I don't even want to know the number. Shinohara also stated that Toei's other tokusatsu series, KamenRider, reportedly maintained a flat design fee for partially modified designs, adding that he was told that compensation differences between Toei productions were discouraged. Shinohara also acknowledged that the company's management has changed since then and that the current system may hopefully be different. I would hope so, considering Kakusei Hunter Omega Horn is out, and we saw some of the monster designs there. Now, for the emotions we get in this show, each Gavan gets an assigned emotion. Like, Infinity is rage and anger, Bushido is sadness, Luminous is joy, Raya is fear, and our main villain, Death Gavan, is jealousy. So basically, if you're a Gavan, you're assigned a standard emotion that anyone would know. Meanwhile, the auxiliary gears that do get used in this show, the emotions they get, they could be a bit abstract. Like loneliness, I will admit, that could be a general emotion, I won't deny that. But others like worry, loneliness, I think in the Poacher episode, that one nega Emor gear was snuggle. Those are all kind of like feelings per se. Depends on when you Google them and get a definition. But it's like some of these emotions, like satisfaction and all, and I am naming examples off the show, they're kind of like, they're like feelings tied to emotions. But yeah, like, you get what I mean? Like, when I see the different type of emotions we get for specific gears, it honestly kind of reminds me of KamenRider W with the Dopine memories. Like, sometimes they can get a bit abstract. Like for example, the weather memory. Like, it's the with the weather memory, you'll get the powers of all different types of elements, but the monster design is kind of samurai-esque. It's like it gets kind of all over the place like that. But since we have already talked about our Gavons and their emotions, let's talk about the aesthetics. I do quite like the suits in this show. It's a tie between Bushido and Luminous for my favorite, but they look so great. Infinity's is pretty nice, a bit standard, but Bushido and Luminous, they just look nice. For Luminous, it's a little unfair because gold is one of my favorite colors. But Bushido, dude is a straight up samurai, and that is so phenomenal. And for Raya, this makes me think of another thing too. Like, if each of these Gavons are kind of based off of previous Metal Heroes, like Raya, for example, he's clearly a callback to Sekai Ninja Jiraiya, just more metallic, and he looks great. But for everyone else, let's think about it. Like, for Bushido, he kind of reminds me of Shojinki Metalder because his character is an artificial human. Luminous, for Luminous, it's a semi-stretch depending on how you look at it. Luminous could remind me of the two heroines from Jiku Senshi Spillbond, Diane Lady and Helen Lady, because they're female protagonists. Infinity is... This is an idea in my head for Infinity. Like, he could... In my mind, he feels like a fusion of the original Gavan and Sharavan, because he's red and he has the Gavan face. These characters could remind me of previous Metal Heroes, aesthetically speaking, and when you look at them. And while we're still on the characters, Def Gavan and how he looks, it fits. Like, because he's evil, the broken face. Okay, yeah, like very Two-Face vibe from him, which was most likely intentional. And so, the suits for each of the Gavons in this show, amazing. And I'm just talking about the main ones. And so, while we're at it, another interesting thing this show has that the original show did not have, a transformation device. In the original Gavan, he had a transformation call, but here, everyone has a transformation device, the Gavarian trigger. Basically, every Gavan, except for Def Gavan, has a Gavarian trigger to transform, as they are powered by Emor gears. Def Gavan, on the other hand, he has his own twisted version of a Gavarian trigger called a Gavarian rifle, which is basically a gun, but with a longer nose. I'll say this, I do like how he transforms with it, with just holding the rifle sideways. That's how you know you mean business. But yeah, the Gavarian trigger, not a bad design. It's a very, not just as a weapon, but it's a very universal design for it to be multiple things. Like, when it's facing upwards, it's a transformation gun. But when it's upside down, it's a ship that can also transform into a mech, the Cosmo Gavarian, to which we might as well... Well, actually, I'm trying to think about it right now. Like, if I want to talk about the mech first, because there also is another weapon that each Gavan has, which is a Gavarian blade. Also, definite callback to the original Gavan for when anyone does a sword finisher. And it's a step up, because in the original Gavan, the eyes glue, like in the helmet. But here, each character would glow all throughout their suit to correspond to each emotion each Gavan is based off of. It's what a way of fully charging your attack, not just through the weapon, but through the suit as well, just getting into that finishing move. So that's impressive. But while each blanked out there. While each Gavan does have a Gavarian trigger and Gavarian blade, each Gavan admittedly fights differently. Like with Infinity, he'll fight with the gun and sword. Raya will be with the sword, since, spoiler alert, which any of you would have guessed, he is a ninja, and ninjas fight with swords. Bushido and Luminous, they are the outline. They are the different ones because Bushido fights with dual swords, and Luminous uses weapons based off of the armament mecha the Cosmo Gavarian gets. So it's nice that each character really differentiates from each other, which would make sense because they're all different Gavons from different universes and all different type of people. And since I've mentioned the mech twice now, let's talk about the Cosmo Gavarian and its mech form. Alright. The mech form, it's pretty average. I want to say that it's a bit simple. Like, it is when looking at it, but when it transforms, it's semi-intricate because it's a gun transforming into a robot. And honestly, I don't even mind the trigger on the side because, yeah, this is coming from a gun from a ship to a robot. And so at least it's pretty dynamic with how it is. Like when it transforms, like the nose of the gun now becomes a gun for the robot. So yeah, that's pretty nice. Before I forget, let's now talk about the Maku dimension because it was a big thing in the original show. It's not much of a big thing here. It's more of an occasional thing. Just like the original, it's the Maku dimension is this show's version of Make My Monster Grow. But here, we actually don't go to the Maku dimension too often. Sometimes we will, or will prevent going there by shooting the portal to it, which that I liked. One complaint anyone could have about Gavan, even me, is that every episode we constantly went to the Maku dimension. It was very rare when we didn't go to the Maku dimension. But for once, we're actually able to avoid it. That's not a bad thing, because for the times that we aren't able to avoid it, it could still be a treat. Because the whole point of the Maku dimension was that the villains get a big advantage having a boost in power. Like, it's supposed to be fighting on hard mode in a video game for the good guys. But visually, how the Maku dimension looks now, because ever since the original show, there have been different interpretations of the Maku dimension, even in Gokaiger versus Gavan. Like, from what I remember, from what I saw literally a couple of months ago, from when I reviewed the original Gavan, the Maku dimension is meant to be twisted, like an antithesis of reality, and it looked that way due to the green screen effects and animation at the time of the 80s. Here, it's pretty CGI heavy, I'll give it that. And in some cases, it could be a little disconnected from what was originally presented. Like, say, like, originally, like, in the original Gavan, like, out here, outside right now, would be part of the Maku dimension. But if I was to go into the Maku dimension in Infinity, it would just be all CGI, change in location, just to have the change of battleground for everyone to fight in. Like, it can still be a bit sinister, but I felt like it could have been a bit more sinister and not just relying on CGI. So now, let's get into our characters. I want to talk about the villains first, then get to our heroes. I don't really have much to say about Azazdorf. He is the god that Deaf Gavan served, and he's just a entity of negative energy. That's all I can really say about him. he shows up at the tail end too for cult shit. So, eh. Anyway, Deaf Gavan, Tenshin Mikage, formerly known as Gavan Destiny. He is this show's hunter-killer, a former space sheriff who went corrupt, and why is pretty simple. He was once a good cop who was seduced to the dark side, and since then, he's there to be an antagonist to Infinity, and have things be a bit personal too, since he did murder Reiji's mentor, Gato. But for Def Gavan as a character, he does remind me of Agent Abrera from Deca Ranger, but differs here. With Agent Abrera, he was a businessman, and he only started going after the Deca Rangers personally when they were interfering with his business. For Def Gavan, he's the cause of everything. He's the one distributing the Nega Emor gears, getting in contact with huge criminals from each dimension, from Bushidos, Luminuses, and Rayas. He's essentially the cause of the epidemic. And as a villain, he is pretty evil. Hearing him just basked in darkness is, wow, okay, you're clearly meant to be an antithesis off of Infinity. Not a bad villain, not really much to say. He really does make his way being evil. And I think it helps that his actor is Rei Fujita, who, well, personally, I just remember him as the Dragon Orthodox from KamenRider 5, but apparently he's big in Garo as well. So getting an actor who's big on being evil, you sell it well. So I guess now let's get into our protagonists. I want to talk about, first off, for this character analysis, there are a lot of characters to talk about. So I want to group them together by each universe they're from. So for Alpha Earth, there's Reiji, Daisuke, and Agi. So Reiji, Gavan Infinity, I like him. He's clearly meant to be, I don't know if this was direction for him or not, but he was meant to be like Kenji Oba for this show. Just in his demeanor, positivity, and I guess when things get personal too as well. But with Reiji, I see it out of him a lot more with Def Gavan. Like his first encounter with Def Gavan definitely brought something out of him. Like just having all of his sights on him and needing his friends to bring him back down. But yeah, their rivalry, pretty good. And it is understandable too. Def Gavan is the one who murdered Reiji's mentor. And honestly, I like that we at least see depth as to why. Admittedly, it came late, but I still like the depth. And the depth is that Gato wasn't just Reiji's mentor. He was a man that changed Reiji's life. They met when he was an at-risk youth and became a positive role model for him. That was so sweet. And while Def Gavan considered that Gato corrupting Reiji, well, doesn't see it like that. Everything he is because of Gato, and he thanks him for that. Shoot, Gato even wanted to recommend Reiji to become, well, Infinity, and he didn't think he was up for it, but I guess his death changed that for Reiji and made him want to go for it. But back to Reiji as a character, what I think makes Reiji a good leading protagonist is that he's not always in the spotlight. Anytime they travel to a different universe, due to Reiji being immune to harm from stepping foot in another universe, depending on the episode, Reiji will take a step aside, while said Gavan of the universe would own the focus episode. And that's honestly one of my favorite things about this show. The main character sharing the spotlight, not hogging it. It's just, Reiji is really a good dude. Like, he's a great protagonist to follow and pay attention to. And dude, he's that nice guy. He really is that nice guy. He's willing to throw himself in harm's way if it means something good for someone else. I respect that. So, for Agi and Daisuke, I don't think we get enough out of Daisuke due to him being confined to the ship while out on patrol, since they make a point in the show that stepping foot in an alternate universe is physically harmful to outsiders, and only Reiji and Kunai are outliers due to their special abilities. For Reiji, it's because he possesses special Imorgi, energy for Imorgiers, because of the words. For Reiji, he is immune to harm because of the Yami Makudu inside of him, the special Imorgier that he got thanks to the Supreme Council. And for Kunai, it's ninja magic. It's straight up ninja magic is how he's immune to harm in other universes. But thankfully, like, once Daisuke has a Imorgier to be partner to him, well, he's able to walk around in other universes with no problem. So now, by the end of the show, it's not a problem for him. And clearly, you could see that Daisuke and Reiji are total partners while they're working on cases on Alpha Earth. And it is admittedly sad that Daisuke couldn't be out in the field for so often, but at least he helps out eventually once he's partnered with Yukaider and can move around in other universes. So that's sweet. Now, for Agi, the artificial general intelligence, she's a helper. Not much to really say about her. She's there to be support for everyone. Nah, that's about it. Like, there are some characters that don't need a lot of... Well, there are some characters that don't need a lot of, I guess, development moments and just carry the show with personality. Agi's one of them, just always being positive. And so, that's all I can say about the Infinity Trio. And now for these two. Trust me, it's not who you think it is, and it's surprising that I included them for the character analysis. It's Wanibuchi and Patron, the Croc Cops. Like, they're worth mentioning in this review for a reason. But first off, what a time we're in right now. Just this time. Right now in Tokusatsu, what are we doing? We're slowly trying to step away from Super Sentai and Power Rangers. And what does this show do? They create a Bulk and Skull. Like, really? But at least they're competent. Like episode 1, they are going after criminals that Reiji does end up busting. But these dicks, they steal the credit. But Reiji is at least alright with it, as long as he got the Imorgier from them. But these two, their whole thing is having egos to them compared to the Infinity Trio's double identities as the records department. But thankfully, they're not stupid. Like, and I don't think they would have been worth mentioning if they were, well, actually like Bulk and Skull, where they shouldn't have been cops. These guys are at least smart. And the best example I can think of is episode 15, where Patron was taking a test to qualify to become a Gavan, but because of a case with a serial bomber, he had to put his ego aside to ask for help from Agi, Reiji, literally from his other co-workers, because, shoot, they're police officers first and superheroes second. That should be most important. And they still managed to arrest the bomber before anything went off. It was a refreshing episode, getting more insight on Patron, and while he could reach the mark to be a Gavan, he still managed to eat some humble pie and not complain about it. Though I will say, and anyone listening to this, feel free to tell me your thoughts on this as well. Could a detriment of this show be that it's short? Like, it's only 23 episodes, and we never learned the full process of becoming a Gavan. And from what we'll see later with the Supreme Council, it's sort of a higher power to be selected. So for what we get in this episode compared to later, sort of contradicts itself, because in said episode 15, everything's phrased as if Reiji would have had a say on whether or not he would step us down from being Infinity. That's just me, at least. That's what's the deal there. But these two, Patron and Wanibuchi, for a comedic duo, I like at least that they're smart, and they even catch on to the potential corruption in the department by the end. And who knows how it's going to be in the movie if they're still tasked with keeping an eye on things. Let's move on now to Gavan Bushido's world. So here we're going to talk about Setsuna and Chief Amao. Not much really to say about Chief Amao. She only exists to remind Setsuna of this queen, I guess, from many, many years ago that looks just like her and told Setsuna to be free, go fight for what you believe in, essentially. So with her, not really much to say, but with Setsuna, it's possible he's one of my favorite characters from this show, because I do like his focus episodes. Like, what makes Setsuna's character so interesting is because he has no emotions. He is an artificial human that was created for war. And when he met the princess, or whatever she was, she told him basically, go live your own life. And meeting Reiji became an even better influence for him, because while he doesn't understand emotions, he does understand feelings. And for anyone wondering the difference between emotions and feelings, emotions are more automatic, while feelings are more thought. Feelings are more conscious. So it's like psychological and automatic versus, well, subjective. Because of Reiji's influence on Setsuna, while he doesn't have feelings, he does feel, well, not feelings. While he doesn't have emotions, he does feel more. And it makes him, act more, it does make him act more consciously, as if he had a heart. The best example I could think of is when Chief Amao is abducted by a criminal, and Setsuna decides to ignore the order to stand down to go and save his chief, even though the whole goal was to steal Setsuna's swords. He still went against the order and even had backup from R.E.D to do so. So it's not like he would be walking in blind or unarmed. Shoot, another good example of Setsuna's, I guess you could say, character development would be another episode where he wants to cry. And he actually goes to a class to learn how to emote. But the one running the class is a criminal who is manipulating people's emotions. He caught on to that right away, and he stands by what he believes in and his current, well, inability right now of you can't manipulate emotions. You have to feel them on your own. Like, that's his Gavando. Like, his way of the warrior, to say the least. Like, Setsuna, he's that great of a character. I like him quite a bit. So next, let's move on now to Iota Earth. This is Gavan Illuminus's Earth. All of the names for the worlds are based off of Greek numbers and then whatever digit combo, last four digits of anyone's cell phones. That's why I've been saying the titles of different worlds so often. So next, let's talk about Gavan Illuminus with Koto and Kiki. Kiki is luminous, but I definitely want to talk about them both together because they're also one of my favorite characters from this show. I really like them as a duo. You just know that if this was a Sentai, they would both be those additional Rangers that get paired up together because they're a great pair and they have such history too. I feel like with Koto and Kiki, they are the second most characters where we get their whole backstory for in this show. Honestly, I feel like we get the most backstory with maybe, I want to say about everyone, per se the least. Like, definitely Setsuna, a little bit of Reiji, but with them, we see more of their backstory when they became friends and all throughout the whole run of the show. Episode 19. My God. Koto and Kiki go to a hostage negotiation where Kiki is requested. It's at their old high school, and an honor roll student has a bomb and is holding the principal hostage. It turned out to have all been a plan by an unappreciated teacher to coerce a student to bring Gavan to her to assassinate her. And with Kiki shot, Koto takes her gun to become luminous, but at a cost, the ability to become Gavan in exchange for Gavan's memories. And Koto accepts the offer thinking she'll lose all of her memories of Kiki. In actuality, it's Kiki who would lose all of her memories of Koto. Oh my God. These animators, these animators were fuckers, and they know they were, playing a montage of Koto and Kiki's memories with Love is the Strongest playing. And the montage ends with where Koto and Kiki first started to become friends in this one area, ditching class while it's raining. Koto's depressed. After the ending theme, it goes there. These animators, they knew what they were doing. They were playing with all my emotions, and they know they were. Oh my God. Just, oh my Lord. Oh my God. My God. By the next episode, at least, Reiji's, he's a good dude. He uses his Emor gear to restore Kiki's memories, at a cost of negative Emorgear energy consuming him, which thankfully, with them there, they shut that down right away. But before then, though, like, Koto's time as Luminous may have been short, but I at least appreciate that we got depth to it. Like, with her being a Gavan temporarily, like, her biggest worry was that no one would care whether or not who's Gavan, whether it's her or Kiki. Like, she was so scared of everyone just forgetting Kiki and honestly caring more for her. That's just, oh my god. It's just that fearful. And that, oh my god, that says something for friendship. And honestly, could she have been Gavan for like another episode? Like just another episode or two? I wouldn't be against that, because Kiki became luminous again kind of right away. Like, after that, it's the last 3 episodes in all. And so, speaking of which, Kunai, KamenRider, I don't know whatever Earth he's from, but whatever. I like that after he was introduced, he hung around for a stretch of episodes before leaving to find more allies. Since they make it pretty clear there's a bigger threat out there than we all think, so he worked proactively. Not a bad guy. I do like his character. He definitely did have some interesting moments with other Gavans like Bushido and Luminous, mainly more so with Koto. But I will say this, he is the reason why all the other Gavans can travel to different universes, like, and not be harmed by, well, being in different universes. Thanks to him and his sister working up a concoction by getting a blood sample from R.E.D, which, that episode alone, no, more so the end of that episode, that was crazy. Like, Kunai holds down R.E.D as his sister had a needle in her hand to get a blood sample from R.E.D, and R.E.D is not consenting to any of this. And while all that is happening, the camera pans to Agi just smiling to the camera like, what? Just ignoring the assault on a police officer. Just like, God. It was crazy, man. Like I said, Kunai does have some funny moments. Like, in that one episode after that where he goes to Luminous's universe, and while Kiki is possessed by a ghost, like, he meets Koto, and as they're talking and actually getting caught up with each other about basically their familiarity with each other, both being cops and related to Gavan, he's carrying her while moving around, even doing ninja jumps into the air and all. Like, he has funny moments in this show, without a doubt. The other Gavans, Amiz, the Ant, Diagram, Gavan Amigo, who only shows up for episode 21 and that's it, so what was even the point? They're the suited Gavans who exist. Like, they exist just so they can mimic the lineup we got in episode 1, but it kind of doesn't matter to me because they aren't the ones from episode 1. They're all freaking different. Shoot, Diagram is just a robotic head with the body, because in his universe, everyone is digitized, like information. But yeah, these guys, I'm actually a little upset because in the episode 1 lineup, there's a purple Gavan, and I definitely wanted to know about him because purple is one of my favorite colors. So, with that said, let's talk about the last few episodes. So, episode 22 answers my question of why multiple Gavons can't work in a single universe. And the reason is because of the Supreme Council. It's all a matter of balance between good and evil. One must not be greater than the other. And Gavon's able to travel across universes to support each other. That throws that right out the window. But really, episode 22 is all about how disconnected the council is from real morality. Especially since from this past show, like Infinity coming to other universes to actually support everyone, it actually came with such benefits, since, say, a fight was happening in the Maku dimension and something else happening here. Infinity would go to the Maku dimension to deal with whatever was going on, while Luminous was taking, or Bushido, or whomever was taking care of whatever emergency in reality. And shoot, the only reason why Reiji is an exception is so he can deal with Deaf Gavan for going against the grain. But now that makes me think, well, like I said, Reiji is an exception, but everyone else, no. It's only until the commander comes into this higher presence where Reiji and one of the councilmen are to back up Reiji, they're all able to transform again. And by the end, each one arrests their specific, universe's criminals. Since no one dies at the end of the show, they just go back to jail, hopefully for a much longer sentence. Or, I have no idea how Space Police prefer to do things. The death penalty. I have no idea if they prefer that or not, but anywho. Episode 23, however. The finale started off good with Infinity v Death Gavan, defeating him with the Gavan dynamic, straight up to call back the original Gavan, since obviously this past year Kenji did pass away. But I don't know, after that the show just ends inconclusively. Like, before Azazorf could influence Death Gavan to keep fighting, Infinity powers up, kills them both with the Gavan dynamic, and everything just gets quiet. Like, it's now confirmed that there's corruption within the department, and that's it. Like, nothing else really happens. Like, everyone's quiet, Reiji goes off on his own, and that's the end of the show. Like, I finished this show, like, last week or so, and I was just confused. Like, hopefully this gets followed up in the movie, The Day the Sun Died, whenever that comes out, because for a finale, you end the show with, that's it. It's just weird. But again, hopefully this gets followed up in the movie. Overall, this show isn't bad. Like, for a first, step away from Sentai, not egregious, not terrible. The characters are interesting, and there's enough interesting things in this show for one to gravitate towards anyone. And so, yeah, Gavan Infinity, not a horrible show, pretty solid, to say the least. If anything, I'm not overpraising it, saying it's definitely S tier. This show is definitely about average. I like the characters, I like the dynamics. That to me is this show's saving grace. And so, with that said, I am now going to be reading everyone's comments on Gavan Infinity because these have been prepared since last week. So, let's get into it. What are your guys' thoughts on Gavan Infinity? To which, before reading the comments, these are all coming from Facebook in the Toku group, Toku Infinity. So, Levi Kunchina, it was good. It definitely took a lot of inspiration from the early Metal Hero series in its storytelling. The action scenes were incredible. The best part, in my opinion, I feel like the creators tried playing it safe with this story since it was the first series of Project Red. Interested to see how they do with Omega Horn. I definitely agree with that. Like, this show is a bit safe. And so, next, Keanu Dwayne Barrett. It suffers from Toei syndrome. Too ambitious with enough time to fully flesh things out. I think Toei needs better writers and more development time. That's what I mean about this show being so short. Because it's only 23 episodes, we don't get, like, a lot of information on everything. And so next, I can't pronounce this next person's name, but looking at it makes me angry. It using the Gavan branding feels like a crutch. That makes me want to not watch it. Okay, that's fair. This show is similar to the original Gavan, but different enough to stand out on its own. And honestly, compared to this show, I still prefer the original Gavan, despite the hiccups it does have. So next, Alex Strand, half-year shows are annoying. Back to full year-long, please. Okay, I'm honestly going to have a video covering this topic on shows being shorter compared to shows being longer. So, look forward to that video in the future. So, Nolan Schultz, that is if I pronounced it right. It is dumb to say that I didn't have much interest in watching it because I missed Super Sentai too much. Don't get me wrong, I think all the Gavan suits are really cool. Plus, I've heard a bunch of conflicting things about it, and it's great, and it also sucks balls. I don't know. I guess I'm still coping and adjusting with the fact that Super Sentai isn't coming back for a long while. I do hope that Omega Horn will succeed, though. Not sure how the heck I'm going to watch it, but I already know it's going to perform better than Gavan Infinity did. If there's one thing that the boys love, it's monsters, namely kaiju. I'm not too big into kaiju content, so that's why I'm willing to give Omega Horn a try. Let's see here. Next one. Chris Kelly. Despite being only 6 months, it took forever to get to its point. It frustrated me with its character's build. If it's a full 12-month show, you can take your time on the build, but with a short run, it needed to emulate shows like Garo and be ... punchier. I would say kind of like Garo or even Ultraman, since they've been doing shorter shows for quite a while now. So, Mark Jimol Guiwarez, my apologies if I butchered your last name. It was good. Characters were great. It just felt like the story needed some episodes, or I mean, it needed better ones. Okay. This is just a dark comment already. Kent Oguma, it's not Gavan, period. Okay, last comment I'm going to read is Lim Quiat. Once again, I don't know how to pronounce these names, more or less. Just my apologies if I butchered your last name. From the very start, the Henshin device was an epic fail, but I love the characters, of course, the girls. Laughing emoji. The look of the gun's not too bad. And so, that's Facebook is the only place where I was able to get a lot of comments on, so that is everyone's thoughts on Super Space Sheriff Gavan Infinity. This show, it's not perfect, but it is surfaceable. So, if you're curious about the show, check it out for yourself. If not, it's just up to you. I'm definitely going to try to give Omega Horn a look because, once again, I'm not too big into kaiju content. Like, the last time I watched anything related to kaijus was a Godzilla movie because I was hanging out with Thomas, and I thought that was good at least. R.I.P. the actress from the most recent one who passed away. Such a shame, only 18 years old. But with that said, thank you guys for watching. Please not forget to like, subscribe, share this video, tell your friends about KamenRider Blackman, and look forward to my next review, KamenRider Kabuto. I'm like 5 episodes into that show, and already I don't know how I want to review it. But with that said, thanks for watching. See you guys next time. Peace.